Hi everyone, my name is Eve. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, welcome. So today we are having yet another recommendation video. This one is probably gonna be the first one of kind of a mini series within itself, because it's one of my favorite tropes, and I have quite a few on my shelves and TBR that I'm gonna get to. But for now, we are looking at some isolated / locked in thriller recommendations. Now, I know when it comes to a locked in mystery definition, a lot of people go straight to sort of Agatha Christie murder mysteries. You know, a group of people are in this secluded setting, and one of them is found murdered. And because of how secluded everything is, the only people who could have done it are the people in that house, mansion, whatever, which is a great trope within itself. But for the purpose of gathering a more comprehensive list, that's not the only type of locked in thriller that I'm looking at. I'm also looking at anything that's sort of set in a very isolated setting that has characters trapped in for whatever reason, or if the characters are trapped anywhere together for whatever reason, I'm counting it just for the sake of it, because all these tropes, they can quite stretch out, so to speak, when required. So the first one that I will recommend is kind of a very beginner thriller. It is very YA, but I really enjoyed it, surprisingly, despite how juvenile it felt at times, because it was just some good, lighthearted, as thrillers can be, fun, that I probably wouldn't enjoy as much today if I read it for the first time now, but it has been, I think, roughly 4 or 5 years, so I was still in that sort of prime time. Anyway, that is Your Turn to Die by Sue Wallman, and this is probably also the one that the whole locked in, isolated aspect applies to in the loosest terms, because it's about this family who meet up with their other friends who also have their own families, and they gather together in this house every New Year's to just celebrate that. And the main characters are teens of those families who have become longtime friends because of this tradition, and they essentially find out some history about this house. And I will say that this book surprised me where it went. Again, don't expect some kind of a super profound, deep writing. It is literally just catered to a sort of a younger audience when it comes to some scares and tension, but I will say that the plot twist had me surprised, and I thought that it was actually quite clever. And now when it comes to why I'm putting it in this list, because even though technically they could get out, the whole setting was still quite reclusive, and it was more so that the adults could drive away whenever they wanted, but with the teenagers, they couldn't drive, or they didn't have a car because the parents took it. So as far as the teenagers, the main characters in this, were concerned, whenever the adults just sort of went to do their thing, they were kind of just left there, stranded in a way. And then when things started getting weird, you could feel that, and especially once everything kicks off properly, the main character truly is by herself against that. And I'm not gonna say anymore, but yeah, I would say if you're looking for just some kind of a palate cleanser in between meatier thrillers, this is the one. Next book I have is Entangled by Kat Clark. This is a Lithuanian version of it. I bought it when I was, I think, 16, 17, something like that, so I read it a long time ago. And this is isolated to the extreme, as we're following this girl, Grace, who she's a party girl. Her mom's never around. She's sort of looking for comfort with different guys and alcohol and all that stuff. Basically, living a life in a way that a teenager shouldn't really. She doesn't have any support from anyone, not a proper one, apart from her best friend. And one night she, after a party, and gets knocked out and wakes up in this cubicle of a room, not knowing where she is, not knowing who took her, dressed in just a robe. And we then follow two timelines, sort of memories of just her life and kind of leading up to this captivity, and then her time in captivity and her not even knowing why she's there and not being able to really make any kind of an escape plan and feeling like she's just not adding the puzzle pieces together as she should be. So yeah, this is an interesting one. It's, again, like I said, it is very YA in a way that it focuses a lot on the relationships of Grace and her friends' crushes, her one-night stands and all that sort of thing, as opposed to the captivity. Although when it does focus on it, it's quite gripping, as she loses track of time. She doesn't have a watch, obviously. She doesn't really know for sure how long it's been. And I will say the plot twist had me thinking, really? So it kind of took a star, maybe a star and a half for me. But yeah, if I read this now, I'd probably be like, this is crap. But when you read something at a certain time, you kind of get this association with it. And it was the right time for me to pick up this book. And I would recommend it for, again, for starters in the genre, maybe people who are still a bit on the, I don't know, side of the early 20s, maybe still like dipping into YA a fair bit. But yeah, if this sounds interesting to you, obviously feel free to pick it up, but just keep in mind that it is quite juvenile. The next book on the list is yet another book I bought in Lithuanian ages ago, and I've never really heard anyone on booktube or bookstagram talk about it, which is interesting. Maybe it just wasn't advertised here in the UK because it is written by a Polish author, I believe. But this is Sajakilum by Ursula Poznansky. And this is about a group of people who attend one of those, cosplay medieval festivals where you literally just pretend like you're in the Middle Ages. No phones, nothing. And the main guy, Bastian, he doesn't really want to be there, but he has a crush on one of the girls in the group and he wants to impress her, standard teenage boy stuff. And then they play this game that is meant to be cursed according to all the people who attend this event. But obviously they play that game and weird things start happening. And I know what you're gonna say, how does this apply to the theme of this list? And without spoiling the plot, because it happens relatively early in the book, I can say that the reason I put it on the whole locked in, isolated theme, obviously isolation aspect number one is clear. They don't have their phones on them, they can't really get the easy way out and call for help, but also they spend a fairly big chunk of the story sort of trapped underground. They kind of fall into, I don't know the word for it on top of my head, but just a hole in the ground, and there's some kind of not a bunker per se, like man-made, but just some underground caves of some sort, and they just can't get back up. And obviously when they realize that, they don't have any food, nothing, it just gets really tense, I should say. And I think that, among other things, makes it qualify for this recommendation list. And yeah, the ending gets a bit on the crazier side, so suspend your disbelief, but overall I really enjoyed it from what I can remember. Again, I don't know how it would feel now, but it was a really fun time. So the next book I have for you is a bit of an extreme case of being locked in together. under strenuous circumstances, and that is All Your Twisted Secrets by Diana Urban. And this features a kind of a Breakfast Club-esque group of teens. You have pretty much every stereotype: the jock, the nerd, the popular girl, the rebel, and all of them receive this letter that says, you're welcome to attend this dinner for a chance to receive this scholarship. So obviously all of them are ecstatic about that for their own reasons, and then they get into this room and they find out that it was a trap, and they are locked in there together with a syringe and a note that says one of you has to die within the next hour or all of you die. And it alternates between that hour timeline and them trying to get out of the room and figure out what the hell is happening, and up to a year, kind of, it starts roughly a year ago and then leads up to their time now, sort of figuring out why they're there and how they're connected and what is the point of all of this happening to them. This one was an interesting read in that sense. I was interested to see how their storylines would connect. The ending, I thought, that's, but as far as the whole theme of this video, I can't really think of an example that applies more of people shut in together with a time constraint and high stakes, considering that one of them has to die. Obviously, tensions rise, as you can imagine, and it's just kind of juicy. A book that I kind of forgot about until now, that I think would apply perfectly for this video, that I read eons ago, it feels like, and I don't remember much of it, but what I do remember, it was a bit traumatizing, I'm not gonna lie, but in a well-written way. It's The Bunker Diary by Kevin Brooks, and I don't have it because I read it from the library, and I thought to myself, I'm never gonna want to reread this, so there's no point in me buying it, even though I did like it. But it's about 6 people who wake up in this bunker underground, and they have like a bit of a communal area. It feels like basically like an underground flat designed to keep these people inside, and the only way up is via an elevator that is controlled remotely from wherever their captor is doing this. And essentially they start to realize pretty soon that there doesn't seem to be much of a connection between them and the captor. While they are observing these people, they don't seem to have some kind of scheme or grand plan or anything to do with them, really. They're just watching them. And then one day they stop. And this book is, a lot of reviews have said that it's a great exploration of nihilism and how we as humans have tendency to get used to anything, good or bad, and sometimes it's to our benefit, sometimes it's to our great detriment. And again, I would say that this book had made me quite uncomfortable because it's definitely not a pleasant one. I'm not sure that it qualifies as YA. I really don't know, I've not read into it, but it shouldn't be, because even though half the cast, I say like it's a movie, to be fair, it would be a decent movie, half the characters in the book, they are like either kids or teens. But yeah, this is definitely not a book for super young readers, because it does get dark and it's bleak. And as you can imagine, obviously without spoiling the ending, it's tonally consistent. So you get the point. It's heavy, but if you're feeling for something disturbing, but not to the point where you're gonna feel like sick, because it's not a particularly gory book, then I would definitely recommend that. So the next book that I have technically classified it as horror on my shelves, but thriller and horror, I feel in some cases they can blur together a bit. So this one, for the sake of the theme, I'm lumping it with thrillers for this video, and that is The Loneliest Girl in the Universe by Lauren James, who, by the way, is a lovely person. I actually met her in my creative writing master's class. I think, how long ago was that now? 5 years ago? Something like that. And I will say immediately, this was advertised wrong. It was kind of advertised as a sci-fi romance coming of age story, at least based on the blurb. And yeah, it's definitely a thriller with some horror elements. This girl, she is the child of a couple who are part of space mission, and they are dead now. Everyone on the ship died even before them, which left this girl just completely by herself, with her only contact to Earth being via these messages that take a while to get back to her, as you can imagine. She has some TV episodes, she has some books to keep her busy, and she spends a lot of the time staying in shape and maintaining the ship so that it can reach the destination. But one day she finds out that there is this other ship sent to catch up with her with better technology to help her get where she needs to be faster, basically, and help her with her mission. But then as she talks to this guy, obviously she's not really had any human contact in years since her parents passed, and she gets a bit smitten, but then starts noticing that something's not quite right, and she loses contact with Earth, and the only person she can talk to is this guy. But like I said, she starts feeling that something's just not adding up, and obviously she doesn't really have anyone else to turn to when things do kick off, so to speak. So yeah, this is, again, definitely towards more juvenile side, I should say, but I found it quite entertaining. I think I read it in one sitting. It was enjoyable, easy to digest. It had some genuinely creepy moments, but nothing too tense so that you feel like too much. It was all quite balanced and still aimed at that sort of audience, so they could stomach it. And the whole space setting, I would say, if you're looking for something that's super scientifically accurate, this is not the book for you. I mean, I don't know much about space travel and whatnot. It's not exactly my forte, but people have said it's not really accurate. But again, suspend that technical disbelief a bit. I think it'll be fine. It'll be some good fun. Now, as we're nearing the end of this video, I would like to mention some true and tested classics in this trope, and books that I have spoken about already and a lot of other people have spoken about, but they still apply. That's why they're on this list, and that is two of Ruth Ware books, In the Dark Dark Wood and One by One. And Ruth Ware is just perfect at writing a bit of an isolated, locked-in mystery. So In the Dark Dark Wood, as I've already spoken about them in previous videos, if you've seen them, but for the purposes of this video, this one is about Nora, who hasn't spoken to her best friend in 10 years, and she's had this traumatic event that she's still not over. She gets invited to this friend's hen do. Again, since they haven't spoken, she's weirded out by that. But since her other friend that she has kept in touch with has also been invited, they make a pact to go. And it's in the middle of nowhere in these woods in north of England, in this kind of a very modern glass house. They arrive at this Hindu, and it just feels a bit off because they are all these people that the bride knows, but they're from completely different times of her life, completely different groups, and there's nothing really that binds them together. And then things get super uncomfortable when Nora finds out that her former best friend is marrying her ex. And yeah, this one, it has very mixed reviews, as it was her debut from what I remember. If I'm incorrect, please let me know in the comments. But yeah, people either loved or hated it. It's in my top 10 favorite thrillers at the moment anyway. I mean, I personally loved it. I can recognize that it's a bit of a guilty pleasure when it comes to what the storyline turns into. It is just a bit of a high entertainment, soapy type of thrillery drama sort of thing, but it was good fun, and I think I read it in lockdown as well, so that definitely elevated it because I just wanted to be anywhere but at home. And yeah, it was really fun. And although we get scenes outside of these woods, once we're in those woods, it definitely feels like no one could hear you scream. So yeah, I would say read it. And with One by One, I would say that it's actually a book that fits the whole traditional locked-in trope best on this list if we're looking for the most accurate match. And this is about this group that are part of this company that has a music app that's kind of a Spotify knockoff with a bit of a mix of something else, but they want to sell it essentially to another company for profit. But there are people who don't want that to happen because then they'd be jobless, and people who want it to happen are essentially those who have shares in the company. It goes a bit into that in the first quarter or so of the book before things do kick off, but told from the point of view of the chalet hostess, because obviously it's a work expense thing, so they have the whole 9 yards ready, and a couple of other points of view, but basically they get caught in the snowstorm avalanche sort of scenario, and then this one of the CEOs of the company goes missing while another person turns up dead, and obviously they are locked in with each other, and of course one of them had to do it. So this one again was a bit of a mixed bag for some people, because someone pointed out that you could see what exactly was going on like a third into the book, and when I read it and I got to the point where the reveal of what was happening occurred, I thought, well, of course, but I still had such fun. And if anything, the fact that I feel like it wasn't so much of who done it, but a bit of a cat and mouse game to explore those motivations and how the hell we ended up where we did. And I enjoyed that aspect. I thought it was a bit of a twist on the traditional model of this type of subgenre. But yeah, I had a lot of fun, and the atmosphere was just chef's kiss. Amazing. Like, I love Ruth Ware. I mean, I need to read everything she's written as soon as possible at this rate. And the last author that we're going to talk about is none other than Lucy Foley, and two of the books that she's written that fit into this themed list perfectly: The Hunting Party and The Guest List. So I will talk about The Hunting Party first because it's one that I like more. I know it might be a bit more of an unpopular opinion, but we'll get to that. Anyway, so The Hunting Party is about this group of friends who have been friends since uni, and they make a point to spend every New Year's together since they became friends, and they go to these woods in Scotland near the mountains, and we're told from multiple points of view that one of them has been found dead, and of course, again, it had to be one of them. And just as much as I was interested in the mystery aspect, I also found their relationships a very endearing and entertaining part of the book, because it was the case of, why the hell are you guys friends? None of you actually like each other. And I think it's fascinating in the way that exploring human dynamics in a high stakes, life threatening setting, why I started writing and why I read these sort of books, because I just think that under the right set of circumstances, humans have a tendency to show their worst colors. And honestly, when I was reading this book, I felt bad for the person I don't know if I was meant to feel bad for. And all I could think about was, yeah, you're a bit of a rich bitch, but like, everyone just did her so dirty in this book. I felt bad for her, like, and it takes a lot for me to feel bad for a super rich and privileged person. So, yeah, it was good fun. I mean, it wasn't my all-time favorite, but I would absolutely recommend if you're looking for something atmospheric and traditional and isolated. Of course, it definitely fits this subgenre. As for the guest list, like I said, I enjoyed it less than The Hunting Party. I'm just not really sure why, because it seems like the perfect setting for me to call it my all-time favorite, but I think I had to do something with the characters. But regardless, I still liked it enough to recommend it to people, and as far as this goes, it's extremely appropriate, as it's about a wedding that takes place on a remote island and the groom ends up dead. And you're thinking, what the hell just happened? As you go through the characters and how they ended up where they ended up and how the groom ties into all of this, there's always more underneath the surface. And even though some plot points were a tad too convenient and contributed to why it's not my like all-time favorite, I still think that it's a worthy addition of this genre, and I'm really looking forward to reading The Paris Apartment. I'm not sure how much it will apply to the whole locked-in thing, because it's set in an apartment in a busy city, but we'll see. We'll find out. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this one too. And here we have it, a list of locked-in / isolated / remote setting thriller recommendations for you guys. Some well-known classics, some a bit lighter, maybe younger audience themed, but still good within their own right. This is definitely just part one. I will make at least a few more because I really enjoy reading these sort of books. So watch this space for the next few months, as I will be posting more. And I hope you enjoyed. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see